It's no secret that in 2 years, my family and I paid off just over $55,000 of debt. That was such an amazing feat for us. We have been on this debt-free journey for a very long time, and being able to finally cross that finish line where we had paid off my student loans was such a hurrah moment. And this year, 2017, this is going to be the year that we pay off the mortgage, which will make us 100% debt-free. We couldn't be more excited if you can't tell. But a lot of folks want to know exactly how it is that we managed to pay off that $55,000 of debt. The truth is that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to paying off debt. But there are some things that we did that absolutely increase the chances of us succeeding. The first thing is that we use the debt snowball method. The debt snowball method is where you list out your debts in the order from the lowest balance debt to the highest balance debt. And what you'll do is that you will work on paying off that lowest balance debt first. And then once you've paid off that debt, you're going to then take that payment that you were paying on that lowest balance debt and snowball it down into the next lowest balance debt. From there, you'll just keep on making the snowball bigger and bigger until you've paid off all of your debts. That is the process that we used when it came to paying off that $55,000 of debt. So what did this $55,000 of debt all include? It included 2 credit cards. It included my Tahoe, and it included my student loans, which I don't remember exactly how many student loans I had. I think it was like 7 student loans. It might have been more than that. But my student loans were all housed under Nelnet, so I only made one payment to those loans. So it wasn't like I was making several payments to different loans, but they were like different loans all housed under the same company. And then I just made the minimum payment on that every single month. That's how my student loans worked. I know everyone's student loans are a little bit different, but that's how mine worked. And that's what made up the $55,000 of debt that we had to pay off. So in order to pay off the credit cards, the first credit card, which was our lowest balance of debt, was my credit card, and it only had about, I think, $450 on it. So we basically ate ramen noodles for a month. At the time, we just had our oldest child, so we didn't have all 3 children yet when we started this debt-free journey. And so we just had a bare bones budget, and we stretched it, and we just paid off that credit card in 1 month by throwing as much money as we could to pay off that $450 balance. The next credit card, though, which was my husband's, was significantly higher. It was just over $3,000. And so we were having to hustle. We hustled for quite a few months to pay it off. And then we got closer to the due date for our second child, and we really wanted to have that credit card paid off before he was born. And so we decided to take some of the savings bonds that I've had since the 80s that had already matured. We were going to take those savings bonds and we were going to cash them out, and we would use that money to pay off that credit card, which is exactly what we did. So that's how we managed to get that credit card paid off. We hustled for quite a few months, throwing as much extra as we could, and it finally got close enough to the due date for our second child that we decided, okay, we really need to get this paid off as soon as possible. And so we had my savings bonds, and so they were already matured, and we decided to go ahead and cash those out and pay the credit card off with those. And so then that just left us with the Tahoe and my student loans. My student loans were significantly more. They were right at, I think, $27,000 is how much they were. My Tahoe, the remaining balance on it was just over $18,000. And so for quite a few months, we kind of paid a little bit extra here and there to the Tahoe, but for the most part, we kind of just stalled on this debt-free journey. And the reason for us stalling was actually because of me. I really didn't want to get rid of my Tahoe. I kept thinking there was like some way that we were just going to magically be able to pay off this $18,000 pretty quickly. Forgetting the fact that we just had our second child. We had 2 small kids. There was no way we were going to make this happen. And in case if I haven't mentioned, we live on one income. My husband's the one that works, not me. I stay home with our kids. So we didn't have a bunch of extra money coming into the household that we could use. So I was being very unrealistic to think that we could just keep this Tahoe. I was really in love with the Tahoe. It was like a Mac Daddy Tahoe, fully loaded. I absolutely loved it. And so it was really heart-wrenching when a few months after our second child was born, we ended up at a dealership and we got rid of the Tahoe in exchange for a paid-for purple sequoia, which I now love. At the time, I was not so pleased with it because I was going from this really, really, really nice car to this not so nice car anymore, at least in comparison to the car I was leaving it for, which was really hard. We had built up a little bit of savings. And so we took that money that we had built up in savings and we used that money to pay in cash for the Sequoia. I will tell you that getting rid of the Tahoe was a very big challenge. The Tahoe, we were not upside down on the loan at all. The Tahoe was actually valued at about $21,000 and we owed just over $18,000 on it. The problem with the Tahoe is that it was a hybrid Tahoe and we live here in the South and there is nobody that wants a hybrid Tahoe. Nobody. Everybody wants a loud, jacked up Tahoe, not a hybrid Tahoe. And so the problem is that because the market here in the South wasn't really conducive to selling a hybrid Tahoe, a lot of dealerships were not going to give us they weren't even going to give us what we owed on the Tahoe. They were only willing to give us $16,000. So it was like putting a damper in our plan because we had this money set aside, saved to pay for a paid for vehicle. But we weren't going to get the type of paid for vehicle that we wanted if we were having to basically cut out $2,000 of it in order to make the difference up for the loan from the Tahoe. So we finally found a dealership that was willing to just write off the trade. They took our Tahoe for exactly how much we owed on it and we bought the purple Sequoia. I think they just really wanted to get rid of the purple Sequoia off their lot and take the burgundy Tahoe instead. So I think that's what really happened, but who knows? And so that's how we ended up getting rid of the Tahoe in exchange for our paid for Sequoia. Now, my husband's truck has been paid for a few years, so that wasn't really a problem there. And then my student loans were the next big thing. And how we approached my student loans was basically the same way that we had approached all of our debt. We used the debt snowball method with inside my student loans. Again, my student loans were all housed under one company, but they were still individual loans. So even though I only made one payment every month, the minimum payment, just one minimum payment every single month, that payment was dispersed out amongst all, I think it was 7 loans, amongst all the loans. And so because of that, we decided to order those debts, those loans in from the smallest to the largest, and we started applying everything extra towards the smaller loan. And then that loan would get paid off, and then we would do it all the way down until finally all my student loans in August of 2015, 2 months before our third child was born, we officially had paid off my student loans. And so all $55,000 of that debt was gone. And so the last debt we have to pay for is the house. And so this year, 2017, is the year that we plan to officially become debt-free and pay off our mortgage. And then we will no longer have debt, which will be amazing. But that is the exact way that we were able to pay off the $55,000. Now, I know many of you are probably going, but how did you get extra money? Where did you find extra money? What did you do? Blah, blah, blah. And this is always the big problem that I have when I talk to folks about us paying off debt, because I think people think that somehow we just pulled money off of a tree to make this happen. But how we made this happen is by first budgeting, because the only way you're going to know how much money you have extra every month to put towards your debt is if you have a budget and you know how much within your budget, how much wiggle room you have that you can realistically put towards your debt. That's the first step. The next step is to figure out how to come up with extra money. A lot of my readers know that I walked dogs for 2.5 years. I walked dogs. Hugely pregnant in the summertime with all my kids, I walked dogs, and that's how I earned quite a bit of extra money. Because even though I blog and I now earn a full-time living from my blog, I didn't start earning a full-time living from my blog until 2016, which is a year after we paid off the debt. And so in 2015, I was barely making a part-time income from my blog, which granted that income definitely helped and was part of the debt payoff plan, but it wasn't significant. I think people think that bloggers, that every single blogger makes like 6 figures a year, and I definitely don't make 6 figures a year. And so this wasn't a whole bunch of extra money that we had just coming in that we were able to be like, woo, here we go, money fairy, just pay it off. That wasn't the case. I was out there sweating my butt off, usually pregnant, walking dogs, in order to earn extra money in order to pay off the debt. Along with that, we sold off a lot of stuff. I mean, we have sold everything that you can possibly imagine. We have sold. When we bought our house, it was a foreclosure. It was in very rough shape. And I never thought in a million years, y'all, that people would want to buy the really grody, stove, like a stove and oven combination that was here in our house when we bought it. I mean, it was beaten up and it was so bad, y'all, so bad. And somebody paid $200 for it. I couldn't believe it. I told my husband, I was like, why are you putting that thing on there for $200? Nobody's going to pay $2 for this thing. This thing is disgusting. I can't even clean it. It's like so gross. But somebody paid $200 for it. You will be surprised at the things that people will pay money for. There are things that I had purchased way back when I was selling 31 as a consultant for 31. That was like another way that I was trying to make extra money in order to pay off debt. And so I had all of this extra like supplies from selling 31 that I needed to sell off. A lot of it I'd either gotten for free or I'd gotten really, really cheap. And people were paying way more than retail for these products. It was just insane. I was like, oh my God, I'm like watching on eBay, everybody bidding. And I'm like, holy cow, people actually want this stuff. It's insane. But you will be so surprised at the things that people will pay money for that you have sitting around your house. One of my favorite frugal living bloggers, Lauren Grootman, she shares that one of her big tips for selling on eBay and Craigslist is to actually sell your empty egg cartons, your empty toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, and your washed out milk jugs. People will buy that because a lot of people who either homeschool, teachers, or people who do a lot of arts and crafts, they will buy those things by the bulk on eBay and Craigslist because they need them for whatever the crafts are. They need them for their classroom or for their children, for their homeschool curriculum. And so instead of them having to go out and buy a whole bunch of eggs and a whole bunch of milk and a whole bunch of this and save up and save up and save up for months, they can go on eBay and pay, $7, $10, maybe $20 for this big bundle of washed out milk cartons that they can then go and do whatever little craft they need to do, and it's done. They don't have to go back and forth to the store, save up all these milk cartons, and have to take up a lot of space in their house. They can just get it on eBay or Craigslist. So there are so many things that you can do, so many creative ways that you can earn extra money. So don't put yourself in a box and think that you can't do anything to earn extra money, because I promise you, you can. There are some very creative ways to make that happen. So just brainstorm some things that you can do. If you need to earn extra money in order to pay off debt, brainstorm some things that you can do to do that. Freelancing is a great way to make extra money. If you I have a lot of friends that were at one point or another teachers, and they actually freelance out like editing services. A lot of my friends that were English teachers, they freelance editing services for bloggers, for book writers. They'll edit your documents. I have a lot of friends that were math teachers, and they offer up tutoring services online for children struggling with math. So they never have to leave their home. They can do everything from in their house from their computer. They can tutor people all the time. It's a great way to earn extra money. So just use the skill sets that you already have in place and find creative ways to make extra money in order to pay off your debt as fast as you can. So hopefully this helps answer the question of how it is that my family was able to pay off just over $55,000 of debt in 2 years. If you have any questions about it at all, leave me a comment or send me an email at Jessi@jessifearon.com.